So you mentioned that you started the business at the beginning of COVID. So you've seen all of COVID, the Great Resignation. What do you think are the biggest takeaways from the Great Resignation and this power exchange between workers and management and the owners and labor? It's been this tug of war for the last few years. What have you learned and what do you think are the takeaways from it?
Yeah, I think that I think you hit the term right, right? It's been this power dynamic that's really shifted, and some of it, honestly, looking back, I think it's been an evolution that was coming. I think COVID just sped it up, right? You think about kind of the baby boomer generation, right, where you've had a lot of the loyalty to employers. Most people have been with the company. They were at the point where they figured they were going to retire. You started having all these layoffs that started happening. You've got these Gen Xers, right, that saw their parents and their grandparents that had this loyalty to the company losing their jobs and, creating that uncertainty. And so you started having that shift happening just even there, right? COVID just sped that up, right? Where, a lot of businesses, and this is where, to me, I was really attracted to some of the small businesses, is we saw a lot of small businesses trying to figure out, how do I stay afloat in this environment while still taking care of my employees, right? What are my options, right? Government was a great tool as far as kind of coming out with some of their ERC credits and that sort of thing to help these businesses. But it's shifted, right? We had a large workforce, especially in some of our businesses, right, in the construction spaces, where we did have a lot of people that exited the business for a variety of reasons, even with it being a critical business. So a lot of the businesses were still able to operate, but we still had a lot of people for a variety of reasons that weren't comfortable. And then it's been slow for a lot of people to kind of return back into the workforce, and which, right, created this big push and pull last year, where we had way more positions in most areas that were open compared to what we had available. And so, similar to markets, right, you've got the supply and demand that comes up, and it became this, another fun buzzword, right? The war on talent, of all of these companies trying to compete and attract the same talent. And where we really saw companies that succeeded through this time are those companies that really took the step of treating their employees the right way, showing that they were a valued member of the team. Some of it definitely had to do with compensation, right? Through this, as salaries were being driven up. Um, but finding kind of that happy, harmonious balance of, we had a lot of companies, Joe, yours being one of them, right, that didn't have a whole lot of turnover during that time because of the way that you treated those employees, and kept them engaged and gave them those growth opportunities, empowered them throughout the course of their day-to-day jobs, all that kind of fun stuff. And I think we're going to see that continuing, right? Even though um, the markets are shifting a little bit from a talent standpoint, right? You definitely have more talent available in the market this time this year than you did last year. You still have employees that have a higher expectation, right? That shift, I don't think, is going to necessarily go away, as far as what employees' expectations are of their employer. It's going to be much more of a, instead of the employer, it's like, what can you do for me? It's much more of a, employer, what can you do for me, type of dialogue, now than it has been in the past. I think we are in a little bit of a pendulum swim. I think it'll settle back down kind of somewhere in the middle, where it is more of an even balance between a give and take and more of a symbiotic relationship between the two. But I think we're probably at least a year away before that fully kind of settles down.